Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. Tom Dutta, like Butta, the Quiet Warrior. Hey, everyone. Happy New Year. This is the first show back after the great break. No matter where you are in the world, did you have a good holiday? If you celebrated anything? I hope you did, because the world is sort of, I hesitated to use the pun on fire, but what a tragedy that's unfolding in the United States and Hollywood. My wife actually, her Aunt Alba used to have an Italian restaurant there, and we were just watching. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. Just send out prayers to everybody who's going through that. It'll take years to recover. But welcome back. The show is growing, and thanks to you, we are now live streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, formerly Twitter, which is known as X, YouTube, and now Rumble. And because you're coming back and you're watching this show and the analytics are noticing, the show is growing in popularity. We are now over 300 episodes that have been taped. And we just found out last week that through a rating agency called Listen Notes, where publicists go and look for good podcasts, we're in the top 5% in the world, which humbled me. But again, thank you. It's only because of you and guests like Amy, who's going to be on in a minute, that we can do this. Well, let me tell you about Amy, our guest. And I did some research a bit about the bio. It's kind of funny because when I found this on the website she has, it says right at the top where I came from. Her name is Amy Weinland Daughters. Hope I said the middle name right, Amy. And a few little sound bites here. Amy is in Houston, Texas. And so she says, I was born just a few short miles from the eighth wonder of the world. Anybody know what that is? The Astrodome. I didn't know what that was. Blossomed into womanhood north of H-Town in Spring, Texas. She went to Klein Oak High School and the Texas Tech University. 5 years later, came out with a Bachelor of Business Administration. That's pretty cool. She's been in sector purchasing for a decade when she wrote this. I guess that was her history and career. Started a family. Her husband is a working man, and his job took them to England, which somewhere just outside of London for 3 years. And so that made a shift in Amy, and temporarily without employment, she says, I did the next obvious thing and became a writer. So pretty cool story there, Amy. Come on the screen and let's have a chat. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you, Tom. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Welcome from Texas. Is everything bigger in Texas? Is that true?
Well, that's what they firmly believe here. You know, I grew up here. I'm a Texas girl, but having lived different places, you know, you come to realize, and that's a real gift. You come to realize that, you know, there's bigger things everywhere you go. Everyone's good at something, and Texas absolutely has their share. And I think one of the things they're bigger at is their state pride, for sure.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pride is really important. Yeah, I love the United States. I have a lot of friends. I've worked across the border too. We have many guests coming on like yourself from America, and we are obviously following with interest because the geopolitical world is changing. And so we just really appreciate you being our neighbor. It's interesting that your topic, we're going to talk about handwritten notes. So the first thing that came to my mind, I have a very strange sense of humor. So I was thinking, like, everything's bigger in Texas. So your note card's like 5 times the size of mine.
Right. It reminds me of like a gas station where you go get the big pencil,
that's
fly
right.
swatter, you know, and it says Texas on it. And, you know, it's huge. So there you have it. That's a great thought.
Yeah. Now I'm going to throw something on the screen here. And for the audience who are watching this, they'll see it. Obviously, if you're on a podcast later, you won't, but you can come watch it, the video. That is your website. And I just thought when I was researching your background, it says, for everybody, I'll just read it. It says, meet Amy, a Texas girl living a size 6 life in size 12 jeans. Tell us what that means.
Well, that sums it up. I'm a skinny hot girl living in another body. So that's basically what it means,
A skinny hot girl living in another body. So the size is a size 12. I assume that's what that refers to.
Right, like I'm a handsome woman. I'm not a skinny little girl, but I'm living that way mentally, and I think that's a real important approach to life as a woman. So
Okay, it's gross. That's too funny. There's another part of your website. We'll pull it up later. I just got intrigued because I'm a big fan of lists, like the top 10 lists, etc. And you've got some interesting lists on your website about things you've done and etc. We'll bring that back in a minute. But before we do that, are you ready to go into Plato's garden for a conversation?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let me set this up. We'll tidy this up in the edit, but stand by while we get ready to go into Plato's garden. So 3, 2, 1. Have you ever wondered what it's like to go into Plato's garden? Plato was an Athenian philosopher, and apparently him and Aristotle used to walk and talk and do critical thinking. Well, here we are. Watch this. All right. Well, right now you see on the screen something about Plato's garden. What is going on here in Plato's garden? Well, so Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, Amy, and founder of the Platonic school of thought and the academy, actually from the Greek word academia with a K. This apparently was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the influences of context of Amy in your life. So what does that mean? And don't worry, keep this simple for you. Sometimes I'll bring on guests and they'll talk about how great they are and their accomplishments, and that's all great. However, what we do is we talk about 3 areas. One is the macro, and that's like what was going on in the world around you as you were evolving with your public work and your life and story. The second one would be what we call mezzo. So what was happening in your industry or sector? So for example, you were in a certain sector, you said in your bio, for 10 years, I think purchasing, but then you evolved that into being a writer, an author, et cetera, right? So what was going on in the world around that? And the most favorite one I like is micro. That's you. So what was going on with Amy as you evolved? And we sometimes will go right back to childhood. I mean, people talk about anything. Does this make sense so far to you?
Absolutely.
So here's the last piece of this, Amy, and for the audience, when we hear you talk through these areas, and I'll just weave a conversation, we find nuggets and thoughts, and then it's what's called in academia critical thinking. We take all those thoughts and mesh them together, and then we can discern or find out deeper meanings about you and your work. So let me remove that off the screen there. That's all I'm going to do as a talking head about school. I let you know, Amy, before the show that I'm doing a doctoral degree in London through Middlesex University, and that's where I've learned this critical thinking, and it's been a game changer for some of the interviews. So let's start off with a thought I'm going to throw out there, and then we'll just riff on it. So we'll say this fits into the micro area, which is really you. I call it a spark. So tell us about the first letter you wrote to Dana, and you can explain what this Dear Dana is. I think you have a book. Tell us about it. What inspired you to pick up a pen and reconnect after so many years? Just tell us that part of your story.
Okay, great. It was probably 2014, and I was minding my own business. I was on Facebook, and like a lot of us do, someone's name popped into my head. An old friend, Dana, that I hadn't spoken to in 30 years. We were camp counselors together in 1986 at a summer camp, and we probably spent 6 weeks together. And I really didn't have any real solid members except for we both loud. We both thought we were funny. And
okay, hold on a minute. Loud meaning you laugh loud, or you're just talking a lot over everybody?
Oh yeah, just talking over everyone, thinking we were funny, just kind of taking over the room, and we connected in that way. And I think we both really liked each other because we shared that in common. And so 30 years go by. We spent 6 weeks together, maybe if 30 30 years go by, no text, no email. We lost touch because it was before the internet. So I sit down in 2015, her name pops into my head. I type it into my computer, and voila, there she is, Dana. And since it doesn't mean anything because this is social media,
Yeah.
I friend request her, and she accepts. And so then I spend, a delightful 7 minutes looking through her life on her profile and, catching up, stalking, whatever you want to call it. And I realized right away she's overachieved in children. She has 5 kids, 4 daughters and 1 son. I'm like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
she's killing it on the kids. But so, and right away, just looking through her posts, I immediately find out that of the 5 kids, the youngest is the son. His name is Parker, and
Yeah.
he has cancer, and
Oh my.
it's serious enough that he's at a St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a children's research cancer. I don't know if your listeners or you have heard of it, but a center of excellence for children's cancer. And so that means, if it's that serious, this kid's probably likely fighting for his life. So I follow along with the story as a mom, as a human being. I kind of feel myself overfeeling it, but I get invested. I just start watching. I don't like anything. I don't comment on anything that she's doing because I feel like that's disingenuous. I'm some girl from 35 years ago.
What year, by the way, was this roughly?
2014, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm watching, and she's very kind of like her personality at camp. She's funny, very grateful, very open. And so she's posting about her journey with her son, which is horrific, And so I watch and I start looking for it. It's, content that I'm connected to. But again, I get involved not at all. She does ask for people to pray. So I pray. I feel like I'm supporting in that way. But towards, as the year went on, Parker went into remission. Went back home to Louisiana where they lived. I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. And, and I kind of put her on the back burner of my consciousness, like emergency averted.
Yeah.
I still watch what she's doing because I feel like we're connected now, even though we're having no connection at all. So towards the end of the year, I can see that her posts kind of start to shift, and Parker's sick again. And
Oh boy.
she says, we're going to go back to Memphis, back to St. Jude.
Oh my.
And so then on a weekend, she posts, the cancer's back. It's not good. We're going to be here for 10 to 12 more months.
Wow.
We're going to need people's support. And so I'm a freelance writer at the time. I've just written my first book. And so I sit down, and it's literally, Tom, like a bolt of lightning struck me. And everybody can frame this however they want to, but this is what happened. I was like, I really feel like I need to do something. And just like out of nowhere, it was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start writing them cards. And I hadn't written anyone a handwritten letter in probably 25 years. It's not like I was the letter writing girl.
Did you say 25 years?
Probably.
That is a thunderbolt. That is a spark to all of a sudden say, I'm going to write a handwritten letter right now.
Right. To these random people who don't even know who I am properly. Yeah. But her son is battling cancer. So this is a real rational plan. And this story really needs to be told in levels of me behaving irrationally. So this is step 1. I'm going to send letters. But, I found they're at the Ronald McDonald House. I knew that because she posted, which, they were being supported there. So every week I'm on this writing schedule because I'm writing about American college football. And so I just threw her into my Sunday for Monday. I'd write the letter on Sunday and I'd mail it on Monday. And and it wasn't, how you get an idea and sometimes like, that's what I'm going to do. I was so invested in this, even though I knew it was ridiculous. So I start writing Dana and Parker. I just fill it, front part of a card, thinking about you, praying for you. We're all supporting you. By the way, I'm still as hot as you remember me. I throw some funny stuff in there because it would seem less awkward in a way. So I wrote to them probably for 8 to 10 weeks. And then the end of the year rolls around, and you could again see her posts start to shift, that things weren't going well. And so I continued to write, but I could see that, something was changing. Then her friends were the ones who started posting, and then the unthinkable happens. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with me, but Parker passes away at age 15. And she posted about that. And again, it had nothing to do with me, but I thought, so what am I supposed to do now? Because I'd really thunderbolted into this writing the cards thing. So I sent a condolence card, and then I kind of had a mini thunderbolt. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep writing her. Only this time, I don't know where she lives because it's Facebook. So I'm like, oh, I remember her husband, Jim. He's an attorney. So I find his law office address, and I just start writing her there. that's crazy. And the whole time I have to frame this in, I knew this was irrational, and I just couldn't stop myself. It was like a mission I was on that I had.
Yeah,
I could do nothing.
there was something in your heart, something that triggered you to
Right.
I'm just projecting what I'm hearing. It triggered you to find some stranger who's got a child with cancer and reach out to write a letter to them. I think there's a deeper part of this story in your own personal development. So we might get into your childhood, but there seems like that you are that type of person, right?
Right.
Because I'll just finish with this, that there are many people who will read Facebook and see somebody in that predicament who will never think to reach out and do that.
Right. And it was an exceptional move for me too, because I could have seen myself having that idea and then not following through on. I do follow through on
Yeah,
commitments, but that was an internal
of
thing
course.
completely.
Yeah.
So I start sending her these letters to the law office, and I finally get a Facebook message from her. That was our only electronic communication, and she's like, "Here's my home address," which my friends called that the cease and desist from the law office. But 5 months probably into writing her, I go out to my mailbox. I lived in Ohio at the time, and here is this 10-page letter from this woman who
Oh,
I
wow.
haven't spoken to in 35 years. And Tom, this kicks off 2 years of me and Dana communicating exclusively through the U.S. mail.
That's
And
incredible.
it, and there was no text, there was no emails, there was no
Yeah.
phone calls, we weren't even communicating on Facebook really. But it opened up this incredible free space between the two of us, because I didn't know when she read anything I wrote. She didn't know when I was reading, if I was reading what she wrote. So you didn't feel like you had to respond right away. And then all of a sudden you could say whatever you wanted to say. It was this
Yeah.
safe space. And we would say ridiculous things like, Dana, I've never told anybody this, but I know I can trust you. Like, who says that to this woman who I don't even know? But we cared about each other it was like a very intimate relationship that
Yeah.
made no sense. But the best part was she shared about her grief, and she told me after the fact that she would go into this room with her other kids and her husband if they were having a bad day or a good day. She didn't want to bring the room down, and so she would write me instead. And I had no idea at all how to deal with somebody who was grieving so horrifically. But the letters let me off the hook, because I didn't have to respond to all those things. She just got to say it, and I could just say, "That sucks. This is horrible."
Yeah.
And that was I knew I didn't know what to say. But anyway, the best part was I had no idea what she believed politically. I had no idea what her religious affiliation was. I assumed she had some kind of relationship with God because she asked for prayers on Facebook. But I
Hmm.
didn't know what her views on gender equality or LGBTQ. I had no idea about any of that. All I knew is I cared about her because of the letters.
Yeah. I
So
just want to jump in. I just want to jump in, let you catch your breath there. There's so many things. I'm madly making notes on my paper here, everybody. You might see a camera pop up. That's my studio. And just going to share some thoughts. One of the things that's interesting, Dana, and it's probably the same thing as writing a letter to somebody. When I hear you say something, my brain, it triggers some thought or some emotion in me. You're very gifted at telling your story. So, man, I was thinking about this Parker. Very sorry to hear of the loss of this boy, but it made me think about a whole bunch of things. Like, there are people who put on Facebook pictures of their family and their ongoings and things. And there's two types of people who look at Facebook: the kind who will enjoy and find deeper meaning and something out of it that's good. And then you get the others, right, who criticize. Why would you do that? Why would you put a picture on Facebook? So I just want to say honor you for, number one, seeing the good in what this lady was doing on Facebook. It made me wonder why people in a time of need do things like posting updates about their child who's got cancer. I believe that it's about mental health too, right? It's about human connection. People are reaching out. So that's a really cool part of your story. The other thing that triggered in me is, you might not know this, but in 2018, I fell in a bathtub. I had a serious brain injury, so I've recovered. Still have some challenges, but I was doing a 2-day ride called the Ride to Conquer Cancer, and that was 225 kilometers over 2 days on my bicycle. So again, through that experience, I learned of a whole bunch of people who were fundraising. And one of my friends, actually, his daughter died of leukemia at age 12. And so I never thought, even at that moment, you gave such a gift to write a letter to them. And it's something that you planted a seed. I might actually do that. I might write a letter now and mail it and just say, you know, I rode for cancer to raise funds for, you know, Meredith, your daughter who passed. But I want to share something with you, something encouraging, or something that I learned, gratitude. I want to bring to the attention of the audience this really neat book that you wrote. So before you hold it up, I'm just going to give a little plug here. So you wrote a book called Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. And if you don't mind me sharing a couple things on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So in Dear Dana, Amy recounts her journey of reconnecting with an old friend, Dana, through Facebook. Learning Dana's son Parker was battling cancer, Amy felt compelled, writing weekly handwritten letters to Dana and Parker. After Parker's passing, Amy continued her correspondence with Dana, and blah, blah, blah. Through this endeavor, she discovered the depth of authenticity behind each social media profile. And the book was published by She Writes Press in May 2022. Could you hold it up on the screen there? Let's get people to take a look at it. I'm going to full screen a little bit. You just move it over.
There we go.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love the cover. Just describe what we're seeing there. There's a picture of something.
Yeah, there's a picture of an envelope in a hand, you know, which is really the basic. I mean, that's the whole story in one picture.
Wow, pretty amazing. All right, so before I give it back to you, let's jump back in here. Now we're in Plato's Garden, and we're talking about micro in that last piece, which is really about you. So I want to dig a little bit deeper on that. What shaped you? Go back to your childhood. You can talk about your mom and dad. That sometimes that's part of it, but tell us about pivotal events as a child growing up that kind of shaped you to be who you are.
Right. I think that, you know, my father primarily was someone who, and he didn't talk to me about this, which is interesting because I think we do a lot of talking as parents, or I do at least. He just lived his life and I just watched him, but he was never afraid to do something that was not so much irrational, but that was bigger, like a bigger idea. Like he would follow through on bigger ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that example, even if it was like stuff that was shenanigans, like he was a straight-laced engineer type guy, but like he threw a party one time at our house in Houston, and as an invitation, he had me like on a typewriter type up a letter from the IRS, like all these people were going to be audited. That was the party invitation. But the end, but it was like, he sent this out to 75 people and he thought this was a great idea. My mother is like wringing her hands in the toilet, like she doesn't know what to do.
Okay, but hold on. You got me going here. Your dad, an engineer type, did a letter saying, I'm going to be audited, sent it out to 75 people. That's outrageous.
Right. And at the end, it was the party invitation. But before they got there, they thought they were going to be audited by the IRS because he wanted it to look authentic.
That's clever. That is clever, by the way. A little freaky.
Yeah, and he didn't just talk about it though. He would do things like he would say, we're going to have a family camp. And then the next thing you know, we've had a family camp for 15 years where we bring all the kids and us, we do activities. But he was an idea guy, but he wasn't just an idea guy. He was a follow through guy. So I think what my confidence in doing, this story is a perfect example of several examples in my life. One, reaching out to Dana and having the confidence to do that. And two, the next part of the story is when I wrote all my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. And I think that he didn't sit me down and say, hey, Amy, you can do anything you want to. He probably did. I probably don't remember that though. But his example over and over again. And a lot of it was good stuff, like pumping good into the world. And there was no financial gain for him. He was going to do things that were going to make a difference because he came up with them. And I think he instilled that confidence in me. And my mother's a why not girl, like why not? And she was always like, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? You know,
did she have a profession or work, or was she just looking after the family?
She looked after the family, but she wanted to be a writer.
Oh, wow.
And she encouraged me. And she's 85. She's still living. My dad is gone, but she continues to encourage me. Why not? Why not write a book about it? That's her. Absolutely. And so the intersection of those two imperfect people who influenced me and still influence me in my life, I think that example is a total testament to how this went down, because I felt the confidence to say, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And yeah, this is crazy, but I'm going to just do it and see what happens next. Yeah. That's mom and dad's example.
That is awesome. Well, we want to honor your mom and dad, and I'm sorry for the passing of your dad. My dad passed in 2018, and my mom's still here. She's not that great of health, but you're blessed. It makes me think about parenting, how important that is. You know, you read a lot of things on don't give up on your dreams or follow your dreams. But Amy, maybe there's many out there who need letters from you. But I think about so many people I interview, and sometimes they'll tell me that somebody kind of stomped on their dream or was discouraging or treated them poorly. You just told us some great things about your parents. So I think that was seems like it was shaped you in a significant way. I'm going to throw this out to get you to talk about, I call it the journey. So we might be getting into the mezzo area, so sort of what was going on in the sector around you. So I'm going to just say that, you know, as an author, writer, you're doing some things now. You called it, this crazy thing you started with the handwritten letters, but now it's become part of you. Dear Dana, the book, and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. So writing 580 letters, I mean, that's incredible, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of jealous because I don't know if I have 580 friends on Facebook. So way to go. How did this doing that transform your understanding of human connection? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and there were so many takeaways from writing the 580 letters, you know, about connections. But I think that, you know, first of all, I didn't realize the power of a handwritten letter in 2016. You know, when the United States, that was the first Trump Clinton election. And I think that timing is very important to the takeaway from the story, because I think one of the biggest takeaways in human connection, because one, I think social media, it would be unfortunate to paint it just as bad, because my story wouldn't be my story without social media. You know, it's this great jump off point for real relationship, but it leaves us feeling isolated, you know. But when you receive a handwritten letter from someone in the mail, you go out to your mailbox, when you send somebody a letter, you create this magic moment where they pull it out, and not only whatever you said is meaningful, but just the immediate act of getting a letter from someone. You pull it out, like let's say you sent me a letter, Tom. I go out to the mailbox. You and I went to high school together. We haven't spoken in 25 years. Immediately, I'm going to connect the dots in 2025. I'm going to say, Tom had to sit down. Tom had to get a pen out. Tom had to write down what he was going to say, whether it's 6 sentences or 600. Tom had to find an envelope, find my address, put a stamp on it. He had to drive across Vancouver and find a box to stick it in. And so all of a sudden, I realize, oh my God, I matter to another human being this much. It quantifies that. So first of all, that connection, you've just made someone realize they have someone who would sacrifice those things for them. So it revitalizes what was once an electronic connection and turns it into, you know, flesh and blood, real connection. It pulls them out of this isolation pit, you know.
It's thank you so much for that short story. It is true. I mean, I just got into the journey of that when you were talking about writing me that letter and those feelings, and a lot of things happen in the brain and in your heart. I was sitting down yesterday with a friend of mine. I see him once a year. He's formerly a politician, actually, in our country, high up, but he's in his later years, he still volunteers. And we were sitting on his couch with his bulldog, actually, Ellie. And he was reading articles, and he said one of the things he's very interested now is human connection and what loneliness does. And he said something to me. He says, you know, being alone, there's science now, and the article was actually written by one of your American Surgeon Generals, so the research article. And I took a photograph of it, and it says that it's equivalent of smoking 16 cigarettes or 16 packs of cigarettes. And it's like crazy. And then what you said really taught us something, that this era of, you know, you couch it with your elections, but also the COVID piece. Man, Amy, many of us know that we were living in isolation. And the last thing I'll say on it to you, why this is an important topic for me, is when I had my brain injury for the first 3 years, I sunk into depression, but I was ruminating at home. So I was a high-performing business leader, you know, executive, and then my life changed. And I didn't get a handwritten letter during those 3 years. I remember feeling very lonely and wondering, where are all my friends? So way to go in terms of what you're doing. I want to share something else with you. Can I put it up on screen here?
Yeah.
Just to surprise you. Hopefully you're surprised, or you might say, okay, Tom, the interview's over. So here's, I'm going to throw this out. I'm a little crazy too. I like to do research, and I'm a geek about neuroscience. So what I mean by neuroscience, right, is the neuronal pathways. For example, you told us about writing a letter. What happens in your brain? Have you ever thought of that when you actually write the letter? And what happens in my brain when I receive it? So because I had a brain injury and learned a lot of stuff, I know it's small for you to see, but I'm putting it on the screen so it'll be part of the production. Just going to scroll. Whoops, see if I can change that. There we go. All right. So I'm looking at my other screen here, Amy, to read it. And I'll just keep that on the screen while I read it. But you see where the yellow highlight is there? Mm-hmm. So I won't read it all, but I'm going to send you this as a bit of a gift too. From a neuroscience perspective, the impact of receiving and reading a handwritten note is deeply tied to how our brains process emotional connection, attention, and memory. Here's a breakdown of the mechanisms. So, I mean, look at the first one, activation of the emotional centers, the limbic system. You can look into what that is, but the amygdala, handwritten notes often carry emotional content like gratitude, love, encouragement. That's what you were teaching us. And this engagement can trigger positive emotions such as happiness, sense of belonging. Did you even know about the fact that by doing that, you're triggering the release of dopamine? See, I think you were trying to explain that to me in a non-neuroscience way if you're writing me a letter. But everyone, I just want to share what I learned, that dopamine system actually is the source of all motivation, right, Amy? And so what it says here is receiving a personal note activates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine. It's a feel-good neurotransmitter, a chemical, creates feelings and pleasure and reinforces the value of social connection. It goes on and on. There's an impact on the prefrontal cortex, increasing attention and engagement. Look at number 3, enhanced memory encoding and retrieval. There's this part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is very important in trauma healing and holding memories. But look at what it says there. The tactile and visual elements of handwritten notes stimulate this hippocampus, plays a key role in memory function, physical interaction, sensory processing. This one was interesting. Have you heard of mirror neurons before?
No.
Well, these neurons that actually are somebody can be talking and doing something and interacting, and your neurons in your brain can mirror actually what's going on with theirs. There's been studies done where they've shown ECGs, or they've monitored this, and 2 people in a storytelling environment, their heart rates and things, they actually become consistent at various points. Wow. So I'll just finish with this, that reading a handwritten note can activate mirror neurons, specialized brain cells involved in understanding the intentions and emotions of others. This activation fosters empathy, deeper connection to the writer as a recipient. So in this case, it would be me reading your letter, feels the care and effort behind the gesture. You're a rock star. Did you know that through neuroscience, this is what you were doing? What do you think about some of that?
I think it's incredible because I think you've just put science to everything I've been feeling or know to be true.
Absolutely.
Based on my unique experience.
Yeah.
Because I tell people all the time, the person who's most changed by all of this is me, obviously.
Yeah.
But I would love to get a copy of that because you just put, science to what was previously a set of emotions or assumptions or takeaways. And that's incredibly gratifying to me.
Yeah. Yeah, just it's funny. Thank you for saying that. I will send it to you. I prepared it for the shows, researched it. I'm going to send it to you for sure. You can put it on your website and write into it, pieces writing into your articles. I don't mind. Here's the interesting thing. I thought about, war, right? When soldiers go away to war, I think America's familiar with that because you have a lot of service people. You know how you watch those movies, Amy, and people are waiting to the soldiers and the mail arrives. The big military vehicle pulls up and they're running to get their letters.
Right.
That's just bringing me back into what you've done. Let me throw this out to you, and we'll talk about this a bit. I'm going to put this in the area of macro. So macro would be the global impact of some of what this is. So your work, it kind of to me bridges personal and professional worlds. So So if you can, how can leaders, like people in business, use handwritten communications to engage their people more authentically? How do you think? Any suggestion?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is the where the story went after I wrote the book and began speaking about the story.
Hold it up again, by the way. Let's give
Oh,
you another plug. Just read the title out.
yeah, Dear Dana, that time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. When I started doing podcasts, I started having, at the very beginning, real estate groups started asking me to come and speak to them. And I was like, why would I speak to a real estate group? I'm a funny girl who wrote a book about letter writing. And then I realized that they could use handwritten notes to increase their referrals. And that's what I spoke with one gentleman who saw it and harnessed it. Now they have every November, they call it November. And they write a note every day to someone in the month of November. And then I realized this is universal. The note writing impact is universal to any arena where there's a human relationship involved. So it is well set up for leaders to put handwritten note writing in their toolkit. And you can go laterally in an organization, you can go upwards, downwards, you can be customer facing. It is so useful. I mean, hot topics in right now, like employee engagement, retention rates.
Yeah.
This can be a really powerful, simple, very cost-effective tool in a toolkit of trying to achieve, employee engagement, retention, customer satisfaction. And it literally takes 10 minutes of your time to handwrite something in a note card. Like, you did a great job. I heard about your mother. I'm sorry about, congratulations to your kid. Thank you. You knocked it out of the park, when you did this. And it's super simple to do, and the impact is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, give us an example if you can of. Well, I guess you could pull it out of your handwritten notes, or if you know of somebody who did it, give us laser focus on one story of the impact it had and what the response was to it.
Well, I spoke to a group, and there was a leader in the group, and I told my whole spiel about.
Do you mind if I ask you what industry that was? You were talking to a group of business people.
Yeah, business people. It was like a women's leadership conference.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it was a bunch of different industries at once. But she said that she committed to writing 3 notes a week to employees, and so she said that she did this consistently. I don't know, for 6 months, and she said she walked around the floor of the people who worked for her, I guess halfway through, 3/4 through, at the end, and she said all over the place there was these notes hanging up in people's cubicle, like physically
That's
hanging
cool.
up. And it wasn't just that they got them; it was like a badge of honor.
Really?
To have these notes, and people, and she's like, "Oh, you put the note up," and they were like, "You know what? I'm going to save the note for the rest of my life. That note means more to me than
Wow,
I could
that is
ever say."
powerful, man.
Right, and you're talking about that employee, especially direct supervisor relationship, is so important.
Yep.
And it's as simple as writing 4 sentences in a card and putting it on their desk, or putting it in their office mail, or mailing it to them in the world of work from home.
Yeah. Hey, I got we're live, so we get people chatting on the chat here. I got somebody else throwing on the screen, just so you know, you got fans watching. This is off of YouTube, very informative. So you're making an impact. It's interesting you say that about the handwritten notes and putting it up in your cubicle. I'm glad you said about, it takes maybe only a few minutes or 10, 15 minutes. And then you gave examples. I heard about your mom. Just talk about that for a minute, because some people might feel like I do that. Wow, you got to write, like I'm verbose. I can't be succinct. So how do you do it? Do you write a little soundbite? Do you throw up on people and maybe breach into confidential areas where you shouldn't? Or is it just as simple as saying a few words? Do you sign it with your name? What does the card look like? Is it just a piece of paper you fold, or have you had them made? Just anything, sticky notes, whatever you think.
Right. I think the first rule to letter and note writing is there are no rules. And I know that sounds like like we're getting out of it easy, but I think each of us, our personality needs to play into however we're going to do this, because you got to feel good about it.
Yeah.
And we're all going to, and I had it every letter I wrote. I still write notes and cards, and I still think, I'm putting myself out there unnecessarily. I mean, we're human beings, so I think that embrace that emotion,
For sure.
because the fear of getting it wrong is real, and that's going to happen to everybody.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a writer to do this, and you don't have to write 600 notes. That's ridiculous, and I'm the one who did it, and that's totally dumb. Not dumb, but that's far
Yeah.
fetched. The world just gave me a great platform from which to tell a story from. That's what that's about, I think. But I think a little note card, you can go to, your local Walmart, Target,
Yeah.
and buy a note this big. You can have them personalized if you're, someone who wants to have a professional demeanor. You can go on Amazon and have note cards made with your name on them. You
Yeah.
can go on Amazon and get notes to say thank you on them. And really, if your personality lends you to, especially if it's personal, if it's personal, you can say whatever you want to. But I think from a professional standpoint, brevity is. I'm not somebody who's brief at all. I'm like you. I have a lot of words.
Yeah. You have emotion when you speak.
Right. But I think it doesn't require more than 3 or 4 sentences. But if you feel like you need 7 sentences, that works too. And then as far as what to say, I think we all know what to say, because we all have people floating around our head that we're like, oh, I need to text them. I need to call them. I need to say something to them. It's all right there. Then you just have to find this much confidence
Yeah.
to write it down. But I guarantee you, if you reach out with goodwill in writing to another human being, employee, customer, friend, family member, it's never going to be too late to have said something. It's never going to be not meaningful enough or too meaningful for you to express yourself.
Sure.
And it's as simple as saying, thank you for doing blank, blank, blank. I'm sorry about blank, blank, blank. Congratulations on blank, blank, blank. That's simple. And absolutely sign your name, because
Yeah,
that's part of the
absolutely.
beauty. That's part of the
Yeah.
beauty in it.
And so would you sign it your full name or just Amy, or what would you do?
Well, I think I would leave that up to the discretion of the relationship. If you feel like,
I see.
if
But
it's
if you were sending one to me, right, like tonight, what would you do? Signing Amy Daughters, or just, hey, Amy?
I'd just say Amy, and I might put WD on the end. But my fear would
Okay.
be, hopefully you remember who I was, but just to signify who I was. But if you're if you're mailing a letter, it has your name on the outside of it anyway. So
That's right.
I would just say Amy. But if I was
Yeah.
writing a note to somebody at work, I would probably just, depending on how close, like, I was in the relationship. I think if you're the vice president of operations and you're writing to somebody who's 4 rungs down with you, you might do your
Yeah.
full name, just so, because they want to be, no, it really is from Tom Henderson.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not lying. This guy wrote me a letter,
No, that's a wonderful thing. So what I'm hearing you say is, if you're in the workplace, you can actually write it and then slip it onto somebody's desk or give it to them, or you can mail it to them. That's
Right.
You can do either. I'd share a story with you that when I was, so my background is business. I was in a corporate or business leader, executive, I guess. CEO was the highest level I held before I started my own platform of what I do now, teaching, education, podcasting. And we used to have vice presidents in our team, and they were traveling all the time, Amy. It was crazy, much like the story you shared with me about your husband, where you've moved 4 times, etc. And somebody gave me a little thought once. I remember I wrote this handwritten card to my VP of sales, and but I didn't write it to him. I wrote it to his wife, and I sent it to their home. And I said, I just want to say that I appreciate you giving us him and his time. He's away from home. And you should have seen the reaction to that from not just her, because at the Christmas party she came up to me, but from him.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, Tom, you just made my life so much better. So everybody, we're here with Amy Daughters, the author of a book, Dear Dana. You also have another one, You Cannot Mess This Up, which we'll get into for a moment. You're hearing something here that I think is just treasures. Amy, I just want to throw something else on the screen here for a sec. Seeing that we're in the business of education, not just entertainment. So I know it's fine print, but this is the other part of that document I did.
Right.
And you were just talking about business and lecturing or teaching a group of business women. I was thinking, like, okay, this might fit here. What's the impact of people in business writing handwritten notes? Look at this, by the way. It says, writing handwritten notes to others has profound psychological benefits, not only for the recipient, but for the writer. But this is non-science. So just think about this if you're in business. Enhancing emotional well-being of your people, stress reduction, improve memory and cognitive function. That's cool because innovation in business, I think, right, Amy, starts with cognitively people being sharp, strengthening relationships, increasing self-expression, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, that those benefits can be whether the notes or cards are personal or professional. Again, back
Yeah,
to human relationships.
totally.
It's the same. And I think the other thing that whether you're in an organization or not, writing a note, especially if you're expressing gratitude, sympathy, some emotion to another human being, you sit down and at the end of the day, because we're all living in these messy, complicated worlds at home, at work, but it reminds you of all the stuff that happened today. That's one good thing I did. One
Yeah,
thing I did for another person. And that is so powerful because it gives us hope. And hope's funny because you don't think about that professionally, but we need hope at work just as much as we need hope at home or in our because those relationships we spend so much time with at work,
yeah,
to be infused with hope in an organization, that is incredibly for a leader to feel like, look,
yeah.
of all the stuff that went down today, I made a difference.
Yeah, thank you. It makes me think again in neuroscience where I've spent some time learning about the word oxytocin. Oxytocin, they call it the love chemical, but it's released in the brain when I kind of like Amy. There's something about her, we connect. And when oxytocin releases, it creates that hope and good feeling. And you just gave me another thought. Like yesterday, I was telling you I was with a friend who had the dog Ellie and introduced me, and we were talking. I'm going to send a handwritten note. Normally, I would just send an email. There's something too that I think about. Uh, have you ever heard this where people say it's not what you said, but how you made them feel?
Right.
And I just think it's so powerful because you're absolutely right. You told us, or I remember you said just a bit ago that when I get your letter, I'm going to think about how you actually took the time to get the stamp, to get the envelope, to sit down, to get the pen, to write it, to put some thought into it. That goes a lot longer than just, I'll remember that versus just the words. And I think that's what you were trying to say to us. If I send you an email that says, hey, great interview, thanks, you'll probably forget that. It won't stick with you. But I'm feeling that if I send you a handwritten card and I put the effort in and it makes you feel a certain way, we store things with emotion attached to it, right?
Right. And it'll have a higher priority in your memory than other things just because of that. And that's the thing, Tom. I had no idea how powerful this was.
Yeah.
That moment of realization, that this emotional connection. I had no idea. And then I realized, for just, a few cents, in the United States, it's 73 cents for a stamp right now. In 15 minutes of your time, you literally have the power to change not just someone's day, but it's
Yes.
something they are going to hold on to for years to come. Again, wherever there's a human relationship, this works in a
Yeah.
way that is it's almost counterintuitive that it could be this simple and this powerful. And this is why now I can't shut up about it. I went from being a girl who was like, oh, I'm going to write letters to a girl who can't shut up about writing notes, letters, sticky notes. And you used that term earlier. Sticky notes work.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, absolutely. You've taken something that for sometimes I always say we look at life with complexity, right? And sometimes the simplicity can lead to creating extraordinary things. And just as
Right.
simple as a handwritten note, the idea has been there for centuries. I mean, communication started when there wasn't paper and pen, with people telling stories. So you couldn't write down how to get to the pharmacy, but you told a story. See down the road there, see that big tree where Uncle John married his wife and proposed to her? You're going to turn right there, and the pharmacy's around the corner. And then came the paper. And so there's a whole history about writing, right? But I think we have to go back to that. And I really like this whole topic a lot. There is another book. I just want to mention it. Maybe you can just talk about it, but I'll tell you the title or put it out there. You wrote another, I think it's a book by She Writes Press Again. This one was 2019. It's fiction, time travel, family. That's the genres. But it's titled You Cannot Mess This Up, a true story that never happened. What's that?
Yeah, that is a completely different project. When I started writing, when I had my, time in England where I wasn't sure what to do. It took me a while to build confidence because I have a business degree and so could I really be a writer? And I did the
Yeah.
freelance thing, but I, like many people, had a book idea. That was my book idea that I kicked around in my head for years. And I was basically thought, oh, here's what I'll do. Because I love history. I love anything vintage. So I was like, I'll write myself back to my own childhood. Basically,
Oh,
I'll send myself back in time as an adult to 1978, and I'll get dropped off at my parents' house in Texas, and they'll be in the house. They think I'm a distant cousin. We'll all be the same age, and my brother and sister and my 10-year-old freak self will be there. And I get dropped off by this time travel guide, and she's like, okay, you have 36 hours at Thanksgiving to spend with these people. And I just get thrown into this whole thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be hilarious. We're all going to wear 70s outfit. Everybody's going to be smoking. There's going to be no hydration. And there's going to, it's going to be, it'll just be polyester. But then I realized, and this is a very relatable topic, if you're going to go visit your 10-year-old self and your parents and be the same age as them, all the memories you made as a 10-year-old are going to be thrown into question by your adult self. Because you're going to be like, oh my God, this little kid screwed the whole thing up. That's not what actually happened. It turned into this book about my feelings that I never in a million years intended. So it's a catharsis because it's almost like a therapeutic thing. If you were sent back in time to watch this all go down, you would kind of reorder your emotions and rethink everything. And so that story it's funny. It's very funny. It's won some awards for humor, which is the thing I'm most proud of. It's super nostalgic. I mean, whether you grew up in the 70s or not, it'll bring all those memories back from that time period. But then also it's relatable because you'll put yourself in older Amy's shoes and younger Amy's shoes and realize that because I
did you have that book there in the office with you?
Yes, I have it right.
Why don't we do this again? Giving you this platform here. Hold up that with the other book. I'm gonna do something here as a gift to you. Just full screen you. So just read the title out loud.
Yep, you cannot mess this up. A true story that never happened.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for letting me step on you there for a minute.
No, that's fine.
Everybody, I'm a big fan of reading, and Amy, I'm an author, but many people don't know, but our work doesn't get known unless people read it, but post a review. So I'm going to do a shout out Amy's books here for Dear Dana. You can't mess it up. Everyone go get those books. She'll tell us how to get them at the end. But once you've done it, go write a review. Places like goodreads.com or even on Amazon where you bought it, you can write that review. And that helps the bookstores know it's a cool book, and the analytics will tell people, hey, you should check this out. Pretty awesome. Hey, I have got one more question for you, but we're going to leave that just for a minute. And one other thing I want to do is put on the screen here your website again. So let me just put that there. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try and just see if I can do this right. Just hold on a minute there. I'm going to try and scroll down a bit to this core values piece, and just give you a minute to pick one off there or something, or just tell us something about. We know about values. People in business, they know about values, but tell us anything you want about these because they're kind of cool.
Well, the one I love out of these, I mean, I like all of them, but we don't need a response to validate that we've made a difference. And that was a major takeaway from the letter writing, because there were so many letters, Tom. I never got caught up in who responded and who didn't respond because it was overwhelming. But what I realized is, because I'm a numbers girl, so my response rate was about 77%. And everybody's like, oh, that's amazing. So about 77% of the people I wrote a letter to responded in some way. Yeah. But what I became to realize, especially after writing the book, when I heard from more people, was that the other, 23% of the people I didn't hear from, that didn't mean they weren't impacted deeply by the letters. And it's just a great testament to how we live as human beings, because just because you text me and I don't text you back doesn't mean that your text didn't have an impact on me, but we're trained electronically to look for a response from each other. Yeah. But that's not necessary when you're trying to make a difference with an employee, a customer, or another person in your life.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And I can imagine like that story of the Parker, right? The little boy with cancer. You're sending a handwritten letter, but the mother's in such traumatic times. She may not have the even the energy. She might be going through depression, whatever, to write back. I think you've taught us something really important there, that because this is a big one for me, because I grew up with some senses of lack of confidence just from my early roots and beginnings, and always looking for validation, right? Got to have the biggest title, got to have somebody's got to acknowledge. We go to Facebook sometimes. I've heard this, and I do it sometimes. And you post something, and you go back and look at how many people have liked it, and if it's,
Absolutely.
and then you see another post where there's like 3 times as many likes, and you measure up to that. I just love what you taught us. Everyone, Amy's right. You don't need to wait for that validation. So I'm going to give a plug that people go to, put it back on the screen, your website. There it is. It's amydaughters.com. There's a lot on there. Check it out and connect to Amy. Hey, Amy, I want to share one more thing with you. Do you and your husband ever write letters to each other? I'm just curious. I hope I didn't put you in an awkward spot asking.
No, that's a great question, because he was in the, in the Facebook letter writing project. We're friends on Facebook. So I wrote him, but he was, interestingly, he was like letter 571, because I was pulling names out of a box randomly.
Oh, okay.
And that was very gratifying, since he was, when your spouse ends up being your partner in all your, whatever you're doing, whether they want to be or not. So he put up with and enjoyed not the book. I'm not talking about selling books. I'm talking about the benefits of this, of what happened to us as a family. So I wrote him a letter. Now, he did not write me back, but he is really good about, he writes me cards for every occasion, and he writes something in the cards, as do my children, and they write meaningful things, especially my youngest child and my husband. They write paragraphs rather than just, and maybe, and it's interesting you asked that. I've never been asked that question before, but maybe that's part of my inspiration for what happened to me, is my own family, my spouse.
Yeah, thank you for that. It goes back to the book. I think the second book. What was that one? You Can't Mess This Up.
Yeah.
Where you're and in business, I know sometimes I've been to business conferences or retreats where they have an exercise where they say they have you write a letter to yourself, then mail it. And even in that experience, I was just thinking of what, as a side project, if you wrote a letter in that book, it's about you writing a letter to yourself. It'd be kind of cool if you started writing handwritten notes to yourself and mailing them to yourself, and just over a period of time, and then you're really writing them as if you knew your younger self. That would be kind of fun. Anyway, I'm just teasing you there. Let me just share something with you here, because you're so inspiring with this handwritten that it reminded me that my wife and I did this. And maybe this is a spark that might spark someone else, but you brought this out of me. So you're such a gift to this. So my wife and I are celebrating our 29th wedding anniversary coming up January 20th. And my advice is marriage isn't a straight line. It's up and down, right? She's born in Rome from Italy and came here young. I was born in England. My parents are from Fiji and then roots to India. So we're both immigrants, worked hard. And so I came up with this idea last year. I said, okay, 10 days before our actual wedding anniversary, each day, so there's some rules, we have to write a handwritten thing to each other. But you can't tell each other when it's going to come. There's got to be one a day, and it's got to be, you can use creativity or however you want, right? So we ended up using colored construction paper. And Anna does art. So she's in the banking industry as a manager, but she does art. She can draw. I can't draw. I can draw a stick man if you want me to. So I started thinking back of all the things that I fell in love with her for and what words I would write. So here's examples. I don't mind sharing this. She adores her sister. Her sister's a year older than her, but they live distance. So I created this one. And what I did was I took blue cardboard, but I took multicolors, and I taped this little picture in yellow there, of her and her sister, little stick people. Then here's another one. Back in the days when I met her in the banking industry. We were both managers at the time, branch managers, and they used to call her Anna Banana. because she's a lot like you, the bubbly person, but she would laugh and you could hear her voice everywhere. So I wrote this one, picture of a banana.
That's
right?
cute though. Yeah.
And I'll share one more with you. The one thing that I'm very emotion based, so I get stuck sometimes, but Anna's not. She's logic based. And sometimes they say the difference between knowledge and wisdom is time. And so, what she brought into my life was a lot of wisdom, experiences I didn't have. So there's one.
That's
And of course, the last one is, I call her Mexicali girl. Look how pathetic my drawing is, but that would be her, little glass of wine and dancing around.
I like the hat though, the sombrero. It's very good.
But everybody, we're here with Amy Daughters, who's taught us about the power of handwritten notes. And Amy, all I can say to you is that what happened when we did that is, for example, she would be at work. She works in a home office, and she'd go to the washroom on a break, and I would pop the note on her keyboard. And I found that through those 10 days, the feelings, experiences we both had, the excitement, all things that you said these notes will do, they occurred in multiples. And then at the end, the day of our anniversary, we sat and we threw them all on a table and we just looked at them. And so we keep them. They're in a box. So thank you for bringing this topic for everyone else. Let me ask you one more question before we go to acknowledge you and wrap up. Are you having fun?
Absolutely. It's been a delight.
I call this the futurist wrap up. So I'm playing with an idea. It's coming out of my doctoral about doing another unique segment from my show. I haven't done it yet, and I might have you come back. And it's called The Book Unwritten. And so if you could write a book that doesn't yet exist, and there were no barriers to writing it, something that breaks boundaries or changes or impacts the world, what might it be? Or even an idea, something that's on your mind that you haven't done?
Yeah, I have, a few book ideas kicking around, but what I really want to write about is I want to write something that reminds us that all the things that, and I do have an idea of how to write this, but that divide us, as human beings, that we live in this very divisive culture, that basically inside we all have this narrative that we're talking to ourselves, that we're struggling with, that we all have these struggles that we can't see. And I know that's a common theme, and we've seen it in different sorts of media, but I would like to do it in such a powerful and brief way, back to brevity, which I'm not good at, that it really impacts, people no matter where they stand, with no sides.
Well, there you go. What a great topic. What a great idea. I'm going to challenge you to get that book written, and when you do sometime, come back and we'll help get out to the world. Another example, everyone, of Amy's powerful work where she's doing things from a service point of view, I think, and making an impact in the world. God bless you for that. And now it's time to honor you. Did you know you were getting an award today?
No.
Okay. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, watch some of the other live shows, and you'll see that we do this. So let me just put another camera on the screen here, and just bear with me for a minute while I explain what this is. Okay, there we go. And okay, so this is a challenge coin. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And so challenge coins were created in World War I, and soldiers would carry them in their pockets to commit to a community or commit to something. There's some fun things they would do, Amy. The stories are legendary. Like if you didn't have your coin, you would buy drinks or dinner. And they're used today across the world by organizations, first responders, etc., were part of that. So when I started the show, I just wanted to have something to give, a gift to say thank you. And so the front of it is, they're hand painted and crafted. They're beautiful, I believe. They're raised letters. And this is the image of the show, Quiet Warrior Show logo. But on the back, the show, as you know, is built on the narrative of storytelling by Joseph Campbell's work. And so that is the intricate details of the hero's journey narrative. How we go through life, we are inspired and we seek, and then we do things to change people's lives. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior community, and you are now a Quiet Warrior. Congratulations.
That's gorgeous. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I'll be getting your address offline. Here's the other thing. When I send it out, I'm just going to steal the surprise. I actually write a handwritten card and there you go. But you know what's interesting? I didn't realize this till now. I actually had a wax seal made with a Q on it for Quiet Warrior, and I use red wax and I melt it to seal the envelope. Amy, I've had more people who don't say much about the award or the card, but they go, "Wow, the wax seal is cool." And that, because it takes a lot of effort to put wax and seal something.
See, that's next level. I have a wax seal set too. I have
Do
one
you?
with a unicorn on it, which is my favorite. But yeah, no, and I think that all those things, stickers, seals,
Yeah.
whatever it is, do what's in your heart. People love, and I'm so glad you said that about the wax seals, because I have not spoken to anyone else who does that. So it's
Oh,
great.
yeah, I love my wax seals. Don't want to burn the house down. I gotta be careful, but I love my
Yeah.
wax seals. Hey, Amy, it's been, I told you it would blow by over an hour, so I'll leave the last word to you and then we'll wrap up. Tell us anything you want as closing, where people can get a hold of you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I would just encourage everyone who's listening, if you just go write one note to somebody, whether it's at work or at home, just send somebody one note and see what happens. And then you can find everything out about me at amydaughters.com, and including my mailing address. So if you write me, I will absolutely write you back. But if you have questions, my email address is on there and all the information, the books, all of it. And thank you so much, Tom. It's an honor to be on the Quiet Warrior Show.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It's been my honor. And everybody, find that true passion and purpose like you hear Amy's done here, and live the life, but live the life that you deserve and desire. We'll see you next week on the Quiet Warrior Show. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, we're just going to take it offline, so stand by there.